Thank you very much for joining me today. My name is Tsinovoi, co-founder and CEO of iRiver. iRiver continues with a CDN-focused webinar series. Today we will discuss the CDN migration and how to do it right. I am pleased to introduce our guest today, Gershon Tchemakin, a CEO of GTForce and an expert in the CDN space. Gershon personally managed multiple CDN migrations, and I'm sure that we'll be glad to learn from him and from his experience. So Gershon, before we are jumping to how to do the migration right, what is the motivation that lead companies to do a migration, to do a CDN migrations?
Hello, nice to meet you. Can you hear me? Right. Okay. So there's a few points we should cover when we discuss a CDN migration, and let's discuss each one of them. So one incentive is the cost. Different CDNs offer varying pricing, structure, and plans. Assessing the cost and benefits of switching to a new CDN can help optimize your expenses. Sometimes newer CDN may offer more competitive pricing or better tailored packaging of your specific needs. So cost optimization is absolutely one of the most important points usually when migrating to a new CDN, and something that you want to achieve during this migration as well as a result. Reliability and availability. So, migrating to a CDN with better support and better SLA can provide a peace of mind and ensure timely resolution of any issues that raise. Depending on your user base, you might need a CDN with a wider global reach. Everything depends on your business needs, actually. If your current CDN doesn't have sufficient coverage of certain regions important to your business, migrating to one with better coverage can improve content delivery, speed, and reliability of users worldwide. As for performance, also when migrating to a new CDN, we should not forget about performance. While cost is important, so is performance. If your current CDN is not providing the necessary speed and reliability, migrating to a more efficient CDN would improve user experience and potentially lead to increased revenue and customer satisfaction. We also should consider different type of traffic. We might find ourselves that one CDN can provide us great coverage for static only delivery, while dynamic delivery will not be as efficient as we want to have them on this specific CDN. So we might consider a second CDN just for dynamic traffic. And advanced features as well. Also, newer CDN often come with advanced features such as a better security, advanced cache configuration, header modification, better cache ratio, edge computing, more granular analytics, or improved integration with other services. If these features are crucial for your business operations, it might be worth migrating to a CDN that offers them.
Gershon, it sounds great, and it sounds like there are many motivations to go and do a migration. So why not everybody are doing it all the time? In my feeling that the reason is that it's not so easy process. Basically, this process may take around 3 months, and we can breaking down to 3 main phases. The first one is understanding of the needs and evaluation of the options that we can migrate to. The second phase will be the POC and the testing of the vendors, the CDNs that we chose. And the last phase is the migration itself, is the gradual moving of traffic from your original CDN to the chosen new CDN. And my feeling that all this process is coming with risks. Could you, Gershon, a little bit elaborate regarding the risks that this process introduces?
Absolutely. Risks should be taken into consideration as well, because any process always comes with risk. But let's see each one of them, each point, and see what risks are meant for the business. So traffic lost. One of the biggest risks in the potential traffic lost or downtime during the migration process. If not executed properly, switching CDN could result in temporary unavailability of your service, leading to negative impact on user experience or possibility revenue loss, which is important to business. During this migration process, there is a possibility of data loss or corruption if not handled carefully, of course. So implementing proper backup procedure and verifying data integrity can help mitigate the risk. Moving to CDN, you might find yourself with some missing functionality in the new one, in the new CDN. Eventually, you might find yourself with missing functionality on the new CDN in case initial configuration on the current one, on the current CDN you're using right now, is complex and not all bits and bytes were taken into account. Of course, more time needed for migration, because after proper migration plan and after starting the migration process, we might find unpredictable issues, which always happen, that will increase time to implement new CDN into production. A longer migration timeline provides room for unexpected issues or setbacks, but having a buffer allows you to address any unforeseen challenges without causing delays or disruption to your regular operation. If your team needs to familiarize themselves with new CDN platform or undergo training on its feature and capabilities, extending the timelines allow you depend training and onboarding. This helps ensure that your team is fully prepared to manage troubleshoot new CDN eventually effectively. And there's always hidden cost in all projects. We might find ourselves with some hidden costs we didn't consider before. While cost reduction may be a motivating factor for migration to a new CDN, there is a risk that the actual migration cost could exceed the initial estimates. It's important to carefully analyze pricing structure, migration costs, and ongoing expenses to ensure that the migration remains financially viable. Also, man hours should be taken into consideration while migration to new CDN, because finally, people who are touching and managing and doing all this migration, these are developers, and it costs us money as well. And a poorly executed migration could potentially impact your search engines ranking and overall SA performance. So why it's so challenging? And the duration of CDN migration can vary significantly depending on factors such as the complexity of your infrastructure, of the volume data we need to migrate, of your security features you want to implement on the new one or move from old one for old CDN to new CDN, and the level of testing optimization required and availability of resources for planning execution. While some migration can be completed with 2-3 months, others may take longer. Some reasons why and some steps we might do while moving to a new CDN. It's actually assessment and planning, preparation and setup, data migration, testing, deployment, etc., and also monitoring, which should be ongoing process doing all the time. CDN migration requires a combination of technical expertise, project management skills, and domain knowledges. CDN is not, it's only 3 letters, CDN, Content Delivery Network, but it should, under this content delivery network policy, you might find yourself with a lot of technologies. So when you move into new CDN, you should understand in depth and understand what does it mean CDN, including caching mechanism, content delivery optimization, CDN specific features. You should know the networking part as well, DNS configuration, IP routing, all the IP fundamental. So this part is very important as well, but also we should not forget about security, which from time to time need to be improved. And in security, you'll find a lot of different layers of security, like DDoS protection, anti-bot, WAF, etc. And so this one should be taken into consideration while you migrating to new CDN, and these are challenges you will meet yourself. To overcome the learning curves associated with CDN migration, it is important to invest in training, education, and hands-on experience for the engineers as well. By proactively investing in learning skills development, team can overcome the challenges associated with CDN migration and achieve successful outcomes in their migration process. This is in general why it's so challenging.
Thanks, Gershon. So experience like you have is priceless. But in this session, we will try to provide some guidelines and some tips how to make the CDN migration right. So let's start with the first stage. In the first stage in your migration journey, you should evaluate. We should evaluate the needs and what we are already using today, and what are the options that we have to migrate to. So we should ask ourselves a few questions. The first question is, why you want to migrate? What is your motivation? You want to achieve better performance? You want to reduce the cost? You're not happy with the support? You're missing some functionality. The second aspect is you should verify that you are aware to what you're using today in your existing CDN. Your unique configuration, which monitoring and logging you're using today in your day-by-day operation, how this monitor integrated in the entire monitoring system that you're using in your organization. Integrations that you did with the CDN, for example, purging. If part of your CI/CD, you are doing a purge operations, you should know about it, and you should make similar integrations with your new CDN. You should be aware to the distribution of your traffic, because during the process, you would like to evaluate the performance and ensure that your end users at least didn't impact negatively as a result of this migration. So you should know what is the distribution of your traffic. And of course, you should have some baseline of performance measurements. So you will know how to evaluate your new vendor when you're starting your testing. When you're looking on that, you should build kind of a checklist, and then go to the CDN's documentation, talk with the CDN providers, and try to complete this checklist for you in order to identify the options with which CDNs are kind of candidates from your perspective to start and do a POC and testing with them. So to make the conversation a little bit more interactive, what will be the motivation from your perspective, or what you think should be the motivation to do the migration, or the key motivation for the migration? The numbers are changing all the time. Now it started to stabilize a little bit. Okay, last 5 seconds. So it's interesting. It looks like based on at least our form, the main motivation is improving resiliency and performance, and after that, reduce and optimize the cost. Nice answers. I will probably agree that the performance and the resiliency is definitely critical for the organization, together with the cost in these days when the cost for everyone is so sensitive. The second phase in the migration process is the POC and the testing. And here, if you have a staging environment, and it's important to have a staging environment, I will definitely recommend to start the testing of the new CDNs on your staging environment. And in the staging environment, I would focus on testing of the functionality of the CDN, the functionality which related to your service, and on the integrations with your service, or with your platform, or with your processes like CI/CD processes and things like that. You should verify that the entire solution is working on the staging before you're jumping and starting to test in production. However, the testing in production is critical. It's not enough to test only in staging. You cannot duplicate or the traffic that you have in production on your staging environments. In production, there is much more variety of traffic. There is much more variety of options that you cannot really cover everything in the staging. And therefore, in the second phase, it's important to test it also in production. In order to test it in production, you should take small portion of your traffic, move this small portion to use the new CDN, And then you should start to compare things. You should compare the KPIs, functional KPIs, to verify that the headers on all different type of requests are returning in the same way. To verify that the error rates and the error codes which return from old CDN and the new candidate is same error codes and same level of error codes from amount perspective. You should compare the cache offloading to verify that the new CDN is, in spite of the fact that it's serving a small portion of traffic, relatively providing a feasible offload. And then you should move to compare performance. You compare performance around the world from all the locations that you have a traffic or important for your business. You should verify that the performance of new CDN is at least good as the performance of the old one. And in case that you're interested to improve performance, to verify that you really achieved this improvement by using new CDN. It's important to compare also the logs to try and find outliers. There are cases that the error codes in the new CDN is lower than the old one, but sometimes there is some new error code that didn't happen in the old CDN, and this error code has significant impact on your application, because with the error codes that you had before that, your service, your business already succeeded to overcome. But the new error is something new that might be your application didn't expect. And as a result of that, it's important to find outliers and compare the logs between the CDNs to identify these changes in the behavior. It's important to mention that when you're doing a comparison, especially of performance, it's important not to compare staging to production. Never compare performance results between your production environment and staging environment. The caches in the stages environments are much more colder. The connections on the CDNs to the origin, to clients, between the hops are much less persistent compared to your production environment. And as a result of that, if you will compare production and staging environment from performance perspective, you will get misleading results that will not indicate on anything that you can really rely. In the third phase, after we chose the CDN, we happy we chose the one or two CDNs that we want to use. Now we should start to do a migration. And for most of the companies, the CDN is a critical part of their service, of their critical service, and we cannot allow ourselves to be down. And therefore, it's important to do the migration in the granular way. You don't want to switch all the traffic in 1 second from one CDN to another CDN and see what happened. You want to do it gradually. I always recommend to start with 1% and then increase it slowly till you reach 99. For example, 1%, then go to 15%, 30%, 50%, and 99%. Between the steps, between the increases of the traffic, you should monitor. You should monitor in production, and it's critical to monitor errors, amount of traffic, offloading numbers to verify that the new CDN is good, at least as the previous CDN, if not better. You should compare logs to identify the outliers that we mentioned before that. You should compare headers from functional perspective to verify that both CDNs provide exactly same functionality. Business KPIs, when you do a testing, it's very difficult to compare business KPIs. But when you start shift the traffic, you should verify that there is no negative impact on your business, and maybe if you expect to positive impact on your business as a result of performance improvement, you should see it during the process. You should compare, of course, performance KPIs, time to first byte, time to last byte, other performance metrics to ensure that your service is performing at least as it performed with the previous CDN, if not better than that. At the end, it's important to leave at least 1% of the traffic on your old CDN for a while. Why? Because sometimes you will find issues weeks after the migration will be completed. And then when you find the issue, to identify that this issue is really related to the new CDN, it's much easier when you can compare it to previous CDN. If you will remove your previous CDN, you couldn't compare it. Imagine a situation that after 2 months that you already completed the migration, the development of your service moved forward, and now there is issue. And there is a concern that this issue related to the new CDN. It could be. But how you can really prove it and prove that it's really related to the new CDN and not related to changes that happened on your origin without having the ability to compare it to how it behaves with previous CDN. So it's important to keep at least 3 months of 3 months to keep the traffic on your old CDN parallel to moving, of course, of the majority of almost all the traffic to the new CDN. So this is regarding the process and how we will recommend, or myself and I'm sure that Gershon will join to me to make the process in order to ensure that you carefully choose the right vendor, that you carefully testing the different aspects of the new vendor, and finally successfully migrate from one CDN to another. I will be glad to show how iRiver allowed to do it. And let me just share the screen in a second and show you in a few seconds how it will look if you will, for example, use a product like iRiver. So this is the landing page of iRiver. In order to, if you want to manage this kind of process in iRiver, you will first of all probably will go and add providers. So you will first of all add your provider, and then you can easily add another provider by provide the API tokens. And then you are simply first of all adding your new existing provider. You're adding the candidates, the options of new providers. Then you will probably go to the services tab. Here you can easily do import. For example, I will show, I think I have something in Cloudflare. I can choose practically the websites of my, let's say, existing provider. Then I will have this kind of services, this service representing the entire configuration of your distribution website, distribution on CloudFront, website on Cloudflare. Then I can drill down. In the drill down, I will immediately see, of course, the information, the statistics about this service, and then the traffic, and we will return to back in the second. And then I will simply go and add additional provider. In this case, if I will add Cloudflare, all my configuration will be automatically deployed on Cloudflare. After that, I can go to the traffic policy and start shift the traffic. So at the beginning, everything will be on my, let's say, CloudFront provider, but then I can easily to define a static policy, for example. Let's do it just in Spain. And here I can come and say, listen, I have a CloudFront 99%. I want to have 1% on Fastly, and that's it. I can start to move my traffic to Fastly. Of course, I have a full visibility of traffic. Now I can start to compare. I can compare how much traffic is going to each one of the vendors. I can compare the offloading. I can compare the error rates, how breakdowns of the status codes to verify that both vendors behave in the similar manner. Thank you very much. And I think that from here, we will be able to take questions. Roy, could you help us?
Hi. Hello, everyone. So I'm Roy. I'm the head of marketing of iRiver. Some of you have already sent us some question during the chat. We also speak with some of you before the webinar on the LinkedIn. I'll just say that in case that you were joining to a series of webinars about CDN and multiple CDN, so if you have you want to learn more about this topic, you have the recording in our website. And now it's time to move to the Q&A session. So we have a few questions. I will pass them to the speakers. The first question that is asked is about hidden cost, and I will move this to Gershon. Sorry, I will add it to Eddie. And the question is that you mentioned something about hidden cost or unexpected cost. Could you please provide more example for that?
Sure. So when there is a unexpected cost, is the root cause of unexpected cost is probably in the fact that the pricing policies between the different providers is so different. Each provider has its own pricing model, and when you are moving from one provider that you're aware to all the price, to all the costs that you pay to him, it doesn't mean that in the new provider you will have exactly the same metrics. For example, there are providers that will charge you for amount of requests or will limit you for amount of requests. There are providers which will not limit you for amount of requests, and if you will reach some limit of requests, you will have overcharging and you will pay additional cost for additional set of requests. You might have extra costs, for specific geolocations. Today, in your provider, you might use global pricing, so you pay exactly same cost for all the geolocations. In the new provider, the price that you got might be only for some portion of the world, and when you are serving, when the traffic is delivered to some other areas, you will have additional charge. You should be aware to that and take it in account. There are providers which might take additional charges for some features. For example, even for TLS certificates, there are providers which will charge you for each one of the TLS certificates that you are using. It will charge you for some features that you will use. And of course, also support. You might have used the provider today, which support is included, and there are providers that you will need to pay for your support. Roy, back to you.
Thank you, Adi. The next question is to Gershon, and the question is, you spoke about migrating to improve performance. What is the right way to execute performance testing? Can I do that before I migrate to a new CDN or only retrospectively?
Okay, so it's for performance, right? It's about performance testing on a new one, maybe on a
You are on mute, Gershon. Please.
I'm still on mute. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. So performing effective CDN performance testing involves a systematic approach to evaluate various aspects on the content delivery speed, reliability, scalability, and even optimization, sometimes even optimization. And few metrics are important and should be considered, like time to first byte, object load time, first contentful paint, bounce rate. Different metrics should be done in the consideration. And always business metric as well, because not always the synthetic metrics explaining what's going on the business side. So when performance should be done always on an old CDN, on a new one. You can use different tools, different services. One of the services I'm using actually for my customers is the Catchpoint service, which provides you a synthetic test from different global points with very extensive analytics, but also real user monitoring (RUM) are also in place to make sure you can perform performance testing in real time for your users.
Okay, thank you. The third question is also for you, Gershon, and it starts like this. You mentioned that migrating to a new CDN provider is complicated. From your experience, how common is it? And do customers avoid it because they are not aware of the benefits or because it's too complicated?
Okay, so as for my experience on my customers for migrating to new CDN, the frequency with which companies switch or migrate to new CDN providers can vary depending on several factors, including changes in business requirements, technology advancements, performance improvement, pricing configuration, as well, and the emerge of new CDN providers. While some companies may stick with a single CDN provider for an extended period, others may switch more frequently to capitalize on new opportunities or address evolving needs. Here are some scenarios where companies might consider switching or migrating to new CDN. We already mentioned them, but let's do it again, like performance issue, geo expansion, cost optimization, contract renewals. This is a common time period when companies actually switch to new CDN, while the old contract with current company is going to end, and so they move to the new one. Or sometimes even merging and acquisition of the companies. A small company acquired by a bigger one, you have to move to the other CDN. So, but overall, while some companies may switch frequently, others may do it very frequent. It depends on their professionals and expertise of their engineers and open mind of their C-level. But doing this might usually optimize the cost or leverage latest advancements in CDN technologies. The decision to switch to migrate to a new CDN provides depend on the specific needs, priorities, and circumstances of each company. So what was the second part of the question? I'm so sorry.
So this second part was about is company doesn't do it because it's too complicated or because they doesn't aware for the benefits?
Both of them. They sometimes not aware of a new feature, of a new pricing, and sometimes it's too complicated. You just integrate the CDN into all of your pipeline, somehow hard coded with some IP addresses you cannot move.
Okay, so the last question, we'll move to Edward, and the question is, what is the distinction by choosing a CDN for VOD purposes and CDN for live streaming purposes?
So I think that it's a little bit different. VOD, in the VOD, there is a lot of, it's a huge library with large objects that many audience asking, but many of them different content. So it's kind of a long tail content. There is a huge library. Someone see one movie today, another one will see another movie today. There are not a lot of audiences which in the same exact time see the exact same content, and therefore it's kind of tail content. You have a huge amount of content that should be cached, and then the question is how good the caching of the different CDN providers, how large the caching of the different CDN providers, and how large this caching also on the edge, which is close to the end users. There are CDNs with architecture which is more distributed, and then each pop on the edge is smaller, and there are CDNs with architecture which is more centralized. They may be less close to the end users, but their edge pops are significantly larger and has significantly much more caching. And from my perspective, a VOD definitely could enjoy from that. Live stream, when we are talking about live streaming, CDNs are critical. Live streaming, it's in cases that multiple audience see exactly the same traffic. So yes, there is no caching over time, but it's important that all the audience will be able to leverage same exact content in parallel, and therefore the needs from the CDN is a little bit different. You probably would like to leverage the hierarchic cache layers. So you will have the distributed CDNs will deliver finally the content to the end users, but you will have many different edges which deliver in same time same content to different audiences, and you would like that this all edge layers will finally get it from single location, and the routing of the traffic from the origin to the end users become much more critical. So there are different, the use cases between the VOD and the live streaming is different. The CDNs are critical in both cases, but it doesn't mean that same CDN will work perfect for video streaming and also for the VOD. There is a very good chance that one CDN will perform better for video streaming case and another one will perform better for live streaming. I hope that I succeed to answer on your question.
Sure. Okay, so we finished the Q&A session. Thank you guys for joining us, and I will give back the microphone to Edward.
So let it pass. So first of all, Gershon, thank you very much for being with us today. And of course, thanks to all the audience that participated in this webinar. We hope to see you again in our next webinar. See you next time. Thank you very much.